The elegant banquet hall overlooking the sparkling waters of Puget Sound in Seattle fell into a stunned silence as Sophia, the radiant bride in her custom Vera Wang gown, grabbed the microphone from the MC with a trembling hand. "Everyone listen up. My brother Nicholas is a gay man, and he has been lying to all of us with his so-called friend Roman," she screamed, her voice cracking with fury that cut through the soft jazz playing in the background. Nicholas stood frozen near the head table, his tailored black suit suddenly feeling like chains around his chest as 200 guests turned their heads in unison, the crystal chandeliers casting harsh light on their shocked expressions. His heart slammed against his ribs so hard he thought it might crack open right there in front of his parents, his aunts, uncles, and the business partners who had flown in for what was supposed to be the perfect family wedding. Sophia was not stopping. She yanked her phone from her clutch and connected it to the projector screen behind the stage, flinging images across the wall for everyone to see, stolen snapshots of Nicholas and Roman kissing in the front seat of a car, holding hands on a quiet trail, laughing over coffee in a hidden cafe. "How dare you, Nicholas," she spat, her perfectly made-up face twisting into something ugly. "You were going to stand here and smile while I married David, pretending everything was fine, but you have been sneaking around with this man for years, bringing shame on our entire family, right before my wedding day." The room erupted in gasps and murmurs, some guests clutching their pearls, others pulling out phones to record the spectacle. Nicholas' mother Elizabeth went pale, her hand flying to her mouth, while his father Victor, the stern head of the family shipping empire, rose slowly from his chair, his jaw locked in a line of pure rage. Inside Nicholas' mind a storm raged. He had spent 32 years building walls around his truth, careful, calculated walls to protect the family name, the business deals, the legacy his father had drilled into him since he was a boy. Be a man, Nicholas, carry the bloodline, make us proud. Coming out was never an option in their tight-knit conservative circle, where appearances mattered more than happiness. He had dated women for show, attended galas with fake smiles on his arm, all while stealing moments with Roman, the only person who saw the real him. Now those walls were crumbling in real time, and the cost hit him like a freight train. Roman stood beside him, his hand brushing Nicholas' sleeve in silent support, his own face pale but steady. Nicholas could feel the heat of judgment from every corner, the whispers already starting. Is he really gay? The family is finished. How could he do this to Sophia on her day? Sophia kept going, her voice rising with every word. "I found the text, the hotel receipts, everything. You think you can hide forever, but not anymore. You are no brother of mine if you cannot even respect my wedding." She turned to the crowd, her eyes glistening with tears that looked more like triumph than pain. "This is why I had to say it today, to protect our honor before it is too late." The betrayal stung deeper than the public exposure. Sophia had always been the golden child, the one who followed the script perfectly, and now she was using his secret as her weapon to shine brighter. Nicholas felt his knees weaken, but he locked them, refusing to collapse. He had chosen silence for years, trading his authenticity for family peace, and now that choice was being ripped away in the most brutal way possible. Guests began to stand, some heading for the exits, others clustering in groups, their faces a mix of pity and disgust. The social prejudice was immediate and suffocating, like a thick fog rolling in from the sound. Victor's voice boomed across the hall, cutting through the noise. "Is this true, boy?" Nicholas met his father's eyes, and the weight of a lifetime of expectations pressed down. He nodded once, the small movement feeling like signing his own exile. The internal war exploded in his chest, love for Roman versus the fear of losing everything, the family, the career, the safety net he had clung to. Roman whispered low enough for only Nicholas to hear, "We can leave right now." But Nicholas shook his head, knowing running would only make the damage worse. The decisions of his past flashed before him, every holiday spent pretending, every late-night call to Roman ended with "I love you, but I can't yet." The price was here, and it was higher than he had ever imagined. As the rehearsal dinner descended into chaos with waiters frozen in place and the wedding planner frantically trying to restore order, Nicholas realized this was only the beginning. The family he had sacrificed for was turning on him, and the man he loved was the only anchor left in the storm. The evening stretched on in fragments of confrontation. An uncle pulled Nicholas aside, hissing about business partners pulling out already. A cousin from New York shook her head, saying, "You could have told us in private, not ruined Sophia's day." Each word added another layer to the wound. Nicholas stood tall on the outside, but inside he was fracturing, replaying every moment he had chosen duty over desire. Roman stayed close, his presence the quiet strength that reminded Nicholas why he had risked it all. Yet the guilt gnawed at him for bringing this pain to his sister, even if her delivery was cruel. By the time the hall began to empty, the damage was done, reputations cracked, alliances strained. Nicholas stepped outside onto the terrace, the cool Seattle air hitting his face as he stared at the water, wondering if the life he had built could ever be pieced back together. The first cracks in his carefully constructed world had just become a full fracture, and the road ahead looked darker than the night sky above. Hours later, in the quiet of their downtown Seattle apartment, Nicholas sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, while Roman paced the living room, the city lights twinkling through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The humiliation from the banquet hall still burned fresh, every stare, every whisper replaying in an endless loop. "I never wanted it to happen like this," Nicholas said, his voice hoarse from holding back tears. "I thought if I kept it hidden long enough, the family would accept it eventually, but Sophia made sure that never happens." Roman stopped pacing and knelt in front of him, taking Nicholas' hands in his own. "You do not have to carry this alone anymore." But Nicholas knew the truth. The choice to hide had been his, and the cost was now shared with a man he loved more than anything. The mind drifted back 2 years to the night they met at a charity gala in New York City. Nicholas had been there representing the family firm, shaking hands with donors while feeling the familiar emptiness inside. Roman, a rising architect with warm brown eyes and an easy laugh, had been the speaker for the evening, talking about sustainable design for underserved communities. Their eyes met across the room during the cocktail hour, and something clicked, a spark that felt both terrifying and inevitable. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, Nicholas carefully skirting his family background, while Roman shared stories of growing up in California with parents who accepted him fully. That first coffee date the next morning in a quiet Brooklyn cafe marked the start of something real. Nicholas remembered the way Roman laughed at his bad jokes, the gentle way he listened without judgment. For the first time, Nicholas felt seen, not as the heir but as himself. Yet even then, the shadows of family pressure loomed. Back in Seattle, his father had been pushing for him to settle down with a suitable woman from their circle, someone who could strengthen business ties. Nicholas had dodged the conversations with vague promises, but the guilt built with every secret flight to New York to see Roman. Their relationship grew in stolen weekends in hidden corners of the city where they could hold hands without fear. One weekend in Central Park, they had sat under the trees sharing a picnic, the kind of ordinary joy that felt revolutionary to Nicholas. Roman had said, "Then I know you are scared, but I am here for the long haul." Nicholas had believed him, but the internal conflict raged louder with each passing month. How could he ask Roman to live in the shadows forever? The moral dilemma was constant love versus loyalty, the fear that choosing one meant losing the other. Flash forward to their first big fight 6 months in. Roman had pushed for Nicholas to come out to at least his mother. "You cannot keep pretending forever. It is eating you alive," he had said during a tense dinner in a small Italian restaurant in Manhattan. Nicholas had snapped back, "You do not understand what it is like in my family. One wrong move and everything my father built crumbles." The argument ended with Nicholas storming out, but Roman followed hours later, and they reconciled on a bench in the park, the same place where their love had deepened. Those moments of joy, the hikes, the beach walks, were the fuel that kept Nicholas going, but they also highlighted the price he was paying, the constant anxiety, the lies to his family. Back in the present, Roman pulled Nicholas into a hug, the kind that spoke of unwavering support. "We will face whatever comes next together," he said, but Nicholas felt the weight of his decisions pressing down. He had chosen to stay silent to protect the family empire, the employees who depended on it, the legacy that defined his childhood. Now that choice had exploded, and the betrayal from Sophia cut deepest because she knew the risks yet chose public spectacle. Nicholas' mind raced through the possible fallout, lost invitations to board meetings, whispers in the country club, his mother's disappointed calls. The psychological toll was immense, the self-doubt, the shame that society had instilled from an early age. Gay meant weak, meant failure in the world his father had raised him in. Yet lying next to Roman that night, Nicholas felt a flicker of resolve. The confrontation had forced a mirror up to his life, and the reflection showed a man tired of hiding. The next morning, the phone call started. His mother crying, asking how he could do this to the family. His father demanding a meeting at the office to discuss damage control. Each conversation chipped away at Nicholas' confidence, reminding him of the sacrifices he had made, skipping family vacations to be with Roman, turning down promotions that required more visibility. The social prejudice was not just at the hall, it followed him online with vague posts from distant relatives about family values. Roman made breakfast, their hands brushing as they ate in silence, the quiet a stark contrast to the chaos of the night before. Nicholas knew the road ahead would test every belief he held about right and wrong, about love and duty. The decisions he made now would define not just his future, but the price Roman would pay too. As they stepped out for a walk along the waterfront, the same pier where they had shared so many happy moments, Nicholas felt the first stirrings of awakening, the realization that hiding had cost him more than he ever admitted. The family pressure had shaped him, but it no longer had to define him. The family meeting at the downtown office tower felt like a courtroom. Nicholas sat across from his father, the mahogany desk a barrier between them, while his mother hovered near the window, her eyes red from crying. Victor slammed a folder down, the same photos Sophia had projected, now printed in stark black and white. "Explain yourself, son," he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Nicholas took a deep breath, the internal storm from the night before still raging. "I am gay, Dad. I have been for as long as I can remember." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of years of suppression. Victor's face hardened, the disappointment so raw it felt physical. "You have disgraced us all. The business partners are already pulling out of deals because of this scandal." Nicholas felt the familiar guilt rise, but this time it mixed with anger. He had spent his career saving the company from bad investments, working late nights to keep the legacy alive, all while living a lie. The confrontation escalated as his mother joined in, her voice breaking. "We raised you better than this, Nicholas. Think of your sister. How could you ruin her day?" The blame shifted to him as if his identity was a deliberate attack on the family. Nicholas' mind flashed to childhood memories, the sports his father forced him to play, the girls his mother introduced at parties, the subtle comments about real men. The pressure had been constant, molding him into the perfect son at the expense of his soul. Roman waited outside in the lobby, his presence a silent promise, but Nicholas knew bringing him in would only worsen the divide. The moral dilemma tore at him: was protecting the family worth losing the only person who made him feel alive? He had chosen the family for so long, trading genuine happiness for approval, and the cost was now measured in broken relationships. As the meeting dragged on, Victor laid out the ultimatum. "End it with that man, or you are out of the will, out of the company." The threat hit like a punch. Nicholas had expected it, but hearing it aloud made the stakes real. He thought of the employees, the community projects, the life he had built on a foundation of lies. Yet the thought of losing Roman was unbearable. The internal conflict peaked as he weighed the options: family legacy versus personal truth. His father continued the lecture on tradition, duty, the family name that had survived generations. Nicholas saw the hypocrisy. Then the same man who preached acceptance in public ran a company with discriminatory policies in practice. The betrayal felt generational, the pressure passed down like an unwanted inheritance. Later that afternoon, Nicholas met Roman at their favorite cafe, the same one where they had their first date after the gala. Roman listened without interruption, his eyes full of empathy. "You do not have to choose me over them," Nicholas said softly, but Roman shook his head. "This is not a choice, it is who you are, and I love who you are." The conversation turned to their shared memories, the joyful moments that sustained them through the secrecy, the hike in Olympic National Park where they had laughed freely, the pier walks where they planned a future in whispers. Those memories now contrasted sharply with the present pain, the family rejection, the social ostracism beginning to spread. Nicholas felt the psychological weight lifting slightly as he voiced his fears: the fear of being alone, the fear of failure without the family net. The day ended with more calls from relatives, each one a fresh wound, some offering fake sympathy, others outright condemnation. The prejudice was systemic: friends from the country club canceling golf plans, colleagues sending cautious emails. Nicholas sat on the balcony that evening, Roman beside him, the city humming below. The decisions he had made to hide had protected the family, but at what cost to his mental health, to his relationship? The awakening was slow, but building, the realization that his identity was not a flaw to be hidden, but a truth to be embraced. Yet the family pressure lingered, the voice in his head asking if he could really walk away from everything. The confrontation had exposed the cracks, and now Nicholas had to decide how to move forward, the price of authenticity measured in lost bonds and gained freedom. Weeks blur into a tense standoff, the family alternating between silence and sudden outbursts. Nicholas threw himself into work at the firm, trying to prove his worth despite the whispers in the hallways. Roman supported him quietly, planning small escapes to the beach or the mountains to remind him of the joy they shared. One evening, after a particularly brutal call from his mother, Nicholas broke down in Roman's arms, the tears he had held back for years finally flowing. "I gave up so much for them," he whispered, the internal conflict reaching a breaking point. Roman held him tighter, whispering that love should not require sacrifice like this. The conversation opened old wounds the first time Nicholas had almost come out at 25 only to back down after his father suffered a mild heart scare, the guilt used as a weapon to keep him in line. Flashbacks flooded in the years of moral dilemmas, the times he canceled plans with Roman to attend family functions, the lies told to cover weekend trips. Each decision had chipped away at his self-worth, the social prejudice internalized until he believed he was the problem. Roman shared his own experiences growing up in a more accepting home, the contrast highlighting how Nicholas' family pressure had warped his view of himself. They argued then not with anger, but with raw honesty, Roman pushing for Nicholas to set boundaries while Nicholas defended his choices as necessary for survival. The betrayal from Sophia lingered, her texts ignored, but her words echoing in quiet moments. She had chosen her image over his dignity, a family member turning into an adversary. The family business meeting the following week brought more confrontation, Victor presenting spreadsheets showing lost contracts, all blamed on the scandal. "You see what your choices have cost us," he said, the words designed to guilt. Nicholas countered with facts, his own deals that had saved the company twice as much, but the truth fell on deaf ears. The moral dilemma intensified. Was the family legacy worth the emotional toll, the constant anxiety, the fear of losing Roman? As they left the meeting, Nicholas felt the weight of every trade-off, the promotions he turned down to stay low profile, the friendship sacrificed to avoid questions. Roman waited in the car, his hand on Nicholas' knee, the simple touch a lifeline. That night they drove to the waterfront pier, the same place from their prompts, the golden light reminding them of happier times. Nicholas opened up about the deepest fears, the worry that coming out fully would leave him isolated, the societal judgment that followed him everywhere. Roman listened, then shared stories of friends who had faced similar battles and emerged stronger. The conversation shifted to plans, the possibility of a life without the family shadow. Nicholas felt the first real stirrings of courage, the decisions ahead clear but terrifying. The price of staying hidden was no longer sustainable, the cost to his mental health, his relationship too high. As they walked hand in hand, the city lights reflecting on the water, Nicholas made a silent vow: the awakening was here, and he would no longer let prejudice dictate his path. The family pressure remained, but its hold was weakening with each honest conversation. The social fallout spread like wildfire, invitations dried up, old friends distanced themselves, the media picking up the story in local circles. Nicholas faced it head-on, attending a board meeting, despite the stares, the moral dilemma of fighting for his place versus walking away. Roman stood by him, the betrayals from family members who leaked more details to the press adding to the pain. One cousin had sold a story to a gossip site, the ultimate family betrayal. Nicholas confronted his mother over the phone, her defenses crumbling as he laid out the years of pressure, the way it had forced him into a corner. The conversation ended in tears, but no resolution, the generational gap too wide. In the office, the prejudice was subtle, but cutting, colleagues avoiding eye contact, projects reassigned under the guise of workload. Nicholas worked twice as hard, proving his value, the internal conflict raging as he questioned if the fight was worth it. Roman suggested therapy, the sessions revealing layers of suppressed trauma, the childhood bullying, the father lessons on masculinity. The psychological exploration brought clarity, the choices he had made were survival, not weakness. Yet the cost remained, the lost family dinners, the strained holidays, the fear that Roman would tire of the drama. A turning point came during a quiet dinner at home, Roman presenting plane tickets to California, a break from the chaos. The trip brought back memories of their beach walks, the joy that had sustained them. Nicholas opened up about the deepest shame, the belief that his identity made him less worthy. Roman countered with love and logic, the truth that Nicholas' strength lay in his resilience. The moral dilemma resolved slightly as Nicholas realized hiding had been the real betrayal to himself and to Roman. The family pressure continued through emails and calls, but Nicholas set boundaries, the first time saying no to a family event. The decision brought relief and fear, the price of freedom measured in isolation but gained in authenticity. Tension peaked when Victor demanded a final family dinner at the estate, Sophia present her wedding long postponed. The confrontation was explosive, accusations flying, the room filled with years of unspoken resentments. Nicholas stood his ground, explaining the years of internal struggle, the love for Roman that had given him strength. Roman attended for the first time as himself, the support unwavering. The family reactions ranged from denial to anger, the social prejudice laid bare in their words. Nicholas felt the awakening solidify, the realization that his identity was not a burden, but a truth to be celebrated. The decisions made in that room, the refusal to apologize for who he was, marked a turning point, the cost high, but the freedom priceless. In the midst of the shouting, a lawyer arrived with documents from Victor, a letter written years ago, confessing his own past struggles with same-sex attraction, the love he abandoned for family duty. The shocking identity truth about the generational secret stunned the room. The hypocrisy exposed the father who had shamed his son for the same thing he had hidden. The hall-like silence fell, the family staring in disbelief. The truth about Nicholas' place in the legacy, now clear, he was the one carrying the truth they all feared. The revelation shifted everything. The moral dilemmas laid bare, the betrayals rooted in fear. Nicholas felt the weight lift, the awakening complete, his choices validated in the light of the family's secret. The aftermath brought difficult decisions, Nicholas stepping away from the family business, but keeping his career, building a life with Roman free from the shadows. The sacrifices were real, lost inheritance, strained ties, but the joy returned in small moments, the hikes, the pier walks, the love that had endured. Family pressure eased slightly with time, some reconciliation possible, but Nicholas knew the path forward was his own. The social prejudice lingered, but his resilience grew. Roman and Nicholas stood together strong, the price paid, but the reward, authentic happiness. Was the bride's decision to publicly shame her brother the right choice to uphold family values, or was it a cruel act born from prejudice that caused more harm than good? True or false?